All right, inshallah ta'ala, we'll begin. It's 10:46. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى أزواجه وذرياته وأصحابه إلى يوم الدين يا رب العالمين اللهم ينفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا كريم يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you guys for coming out. Of course, Sunday morning, a little cold. We have a heater there, so people are all bundled up like we're in Chicago or something, but we're SoCal. We're Californians, at least SoCal Californians, so we're not used to a little bit of cold. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for coming out, even though the weather, whatever the case may be, inshallah ta'ala, you'll see this on the Day of Judgment in your scale of hasanat, as we take the trip of learning the life of the greatest creation that walked the earth, and that is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, there's a lot of great people that we had in the world that did great things, but as some people have ranked, even non-Muslims have ranked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as being the greatest person in history of all mankind, because not only was he a great person, but then it shows where your followers. That's how you know when you have a community, is that people actually congregate around one person, and how much he has changed a whole, not just a city, but you're talking about a whole peninsula. And then up to today, obviously, how many followers, as Islam is arguably the largest religion in the world. If you split up Christianity from Protestants and Catholics, etc., Islam is obviously the largest religion in the world, subhanAllah. All right, alhamdulillah. So inshallah ta'ala, we're getting class number 4, or session number 4. Hopefully you guys have been getting the PowerPoints. If you have any questions, then just email me, and I can address it in the class here. If you think about something, or whatever, inshallah ta'ala, we can also handle it this way. So we always start off with a little quiz question, as we're trying to know the Prophet ﷺ outside his life, but like personal things. So one thing is that we went over the food of the Prophet ﷺ, his fruits he used to eat, or what he used to eat with dates, right? His drink last week, what he used to drink. We're talking about water, we're talking about milk, and the thing, nabid the tamar, where you soak dates in water overnight and then you drink it. It's kind of like an energy drink. And then one thing is like, how was the hair of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Go ahead, you want to give a shot? Black and curly. Okay, anyone else? Long. I heard it's long. Okay. Anyone else want to give a shot? No? So that's good. So when I'm talking about the color was understood to be black. And there's some narrations the Prophet's hair was not curly, nor was it straight. Everything about the Prophet is always like the moderate thing, if you will. That's just the way Islam is. Ummatul wasata, yani the middle way, if you will. Right? And they said it was kind of long. They said between the ear lobes and the shoulder. Okay, so almost like here, if you will. Okay, and one thing is when we talk about that, some people said that was up to the earlobes, they're all from Hadith and Tirmidhi, as I mentioned, up to right here. And then there's some narration the Prophet had 4 plaits, not necessarily braids, but plaits. His hair was long, and they stuck it together with some type of, I don't know, say wax or something, and he'll put it in 4 different layers, if you will, going down. Okay, so there's some narrations on that. The Prophet ﷺ would do this when he's traveling. Obviously, on a camel, hair gets kind of disheveled and so forth, so he would do that. Now, some people read this and they're like, oh, it's sunnah to put your hair down, right? It's sunnah to wear, a garment like maybe I'm wearing. One thing I want to understand, the scholars have broken down the sunnah in 2 different ways. One is we call it sunnah al-huda or sunnah al-ada. Sunnah al-huda is what the Prophet ﷺ did in terms of guidance. Ada means whatever the Prophet did, because that was a custom of the people. Okay? So for wearing clothes like I'm wearing today, or if Prophet wears something similar to this, it's not sunnah to wear something like this. It's just that's what they wore. They didn't have Levi jeans. They didn't have khakis. They didn't have, I don't know what else, suspenders and other things. That's what he wore. Abu Jahl wore the same thing. Okay? The worst people in the Quraysh probably wore the same thing. And there's a whole thing about the covering of the hair too. Is it a sunnah to cover the hair or not? And that's also a debatable thing. The Hanafi school has some reason to show that it's better for men to cover their hair when they're praying and so forth. But the majority of the other scholars says it was just the habit or the customs of the men to cover their hair, whatever type of garb you want to do it. What's a topi, a kufi, or some type of thing, if you will. So when we're talking about the hair, that this was a custom of the people. So someone says, oh, I want to grow my hair like the Prophet ﷺ. If you want to do it just because you love the Prophet ﷺ, then inshallah you'll get reward for that. That's good. But don't say it's a sunnah that we all should do something like that. That's not necessarily something the Prophet ﷺ said, guys, grow your hair. Now he does have a hadith about beards where he said, grow your beards long to be unlike the mushrikeen, unlike the polytheists. So there's a direct hadith on that. And so the scholars have debated what is a beard and so forth. But I don't want to go off on that topic too much or else we're going to go away. But I just want to explain this how the Prophet ﷺ used to do. So inshallah, Yawm al-Qiyamah, when we see the Prophet ﷺ, you'll recognize him. I think you'll recognize it anyhow. It doesn't matter if you know how his hair was or anything. You'll see the nur and brightness from his face. Inshallah, that'll be an amazing moment when we see the Prophet ﷺ. All right, so today we're going to go over, as my imaginary outline here, we're going to be going over how they persecuted the Muslims after we talked about last week. You guys remember where we left off last week? Anyone remember? And the Prophet went up on a hill, right? What's that hill called? No, think about girls' names. Safa, there you go, just guess it. Not Maryam, but Safa, very good. Right, so Safa, right? Safa and Marwa, the two hills. The Prophet went on the hill and said, if there's an army behind me, would you believe me? And they said yes. And he said, you know what, I'm a prophet of Allah to warn you of a disaster that will come if you don't worship Allah and leave these idols. And we're talking about Abu Lahab. He came out and he said, like, you're wasting our time. All this nonsense that you're saying. And we talked about Surah Masad came down. We talked about that surah was sent down, where Allah says, may Abu Lahab's hands perish, may be ruined, right? And his wife will be carrying woods of amber in the hellfire. And we'll talk about what his wife did in a little bit. And then we talk about how kids went around Mecca and were kind of like, reciting these verses of the Quran, mocking Abu Lahab. And that's where we left off. So we're going to continue what happened in the third year here. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals this verse in Surah Hijr, where he says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فأصدع بما تؤمر وأعرض عن المشركين. Therefore proclaim openly what you have commanded and turn away from the mushrikeen. It doesn't say fight them. It doesn't say beat them back up or anything. The verses of fighting have not came down yet. Okay, that'll come later on. But just turn away. They're going to mock you. They're going to say stuff about you. They're going to call you terrorists. They're going to call you all type of names. But just leave them alone and just keep on preaching openly, if you will. Okay? And that's what he did. So what happened is that the mushrikeen went to Abu Talib and said, oh, Abu Talib. Abu Talib was who? The uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. He's the one that's giving the protection of the Prophet ﷺ. Basically, don't touch him. I'm giving protection. It's tribalism. Oh, Abu Talib, your nephew curses our gods, finds faults of our way of life, prostitution, drinking, etc., mocks our religion, degrades our forefathers. They didn't know much. Don't follow what they believed in. Either you stop him now, or you must let us get at him. Like, we're going to take him, we're going to harm him, because he's causing corruption, right? He's causing a whole environment is getting affected by what he's saying, right? So this is what the reaction of the Quraysh was. So what did they do? Now it was Hajj time. Was coming, right? Hajj comes every year, at least, ever since Ibrahim alayhi salam started it. And remember I said they will worship idols at that time. So Hajj time was coming. What's the issue of Hajj time? Why was that the Quraysh got a little bit worried that Hajj time's coming? Why?
All these people from different regions, they come and gather there, so they didn't want that message to spread.
Imagine that, right? They don't have WhatsApp, they don't have Facebook, right? Emailing. All these tribes are going to come from Arabia. And guess what the Prophet is going to do? Is he going to sit in the corner? No, this is a great opportunity to do what? Talk to people. So they're like, oh no, this guy's going to ruin it for everyone. He's going to make our gods look bad. They're not going to come back to Mecca. We got to stop this. So they had a meeting and said, what can we do, right? Character assassination. What are we going to make him? How do we make him look bad? So it said, well, if we call him a kahin? A kahin is like a fortune teller, and they call it a soothsayer. Nobody uses this word anymore, so I put fortune teller there. Someone that kind of predicts the future and prophesies things. But they said, that's not going to work, because the Prophet Muhammad was never known to do any of these things. They call him Majnoon, crazy, right? He's like weird, he's talking all these weird things. They'll tell people that when they come in, we'll tell the people that they won't talk to him. But everyone knew that he wasn't like that. Before the prophethood, he wasn't a crazy person. So that's not going to work. They call him a sha'ir. Sha'ir is a poet. But was the Prophet new to do poetry before the revelation? No. So they said that's not going to work, because everyone knows that he never had poems before he became a prophet. How all of a sudden he has these amazing poems? That's just not going to work. So they said the last thing they came up with is they're going to call him a magician. That why he is dividing people from their tribe, from father to son, husband and wife. He's making all this corruption. He's putting spells on people. So you know what they actually did? They put people on the entrances of Mecca. And when a tribe will come, they say, stop. There's this guy named Muhammad in there. He's really crazy. Don't talk to him. He's going to make you think this. He's going to try to get you to do that. Just come and do your trade and do your worship and leave. Stay away from this guy. Okay? Then go ahead. And then they'll stop every tribe and tell them that. How is this a good thing for Islam? How is that a good thing for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Because it makes it more important.
Everyone's curious, right? If I tell you guys, don't go on this website tonight, what are you guys going to do? You're going to go on the website. Everyone's just going to go on that website. Right? That's how people work, right? You know? And so here is that more people are like, what's going on? And it reminds me a lot of after 9/11. Of course, 9/11 is terrible for Islam, terrible for humanity. But one thing, if you say a benefit came out of it, right, not in terms of the lives that were lost, but a benefit for Islam, is that the Qur'ans were sold out in all the bookstores. Everyone was like, what is this like? Well, they want to kill Americans and jihad and da-da-da-da-da. And they said the conversion rate to Islam skyrocketed. Because if you read the Quran, you really can't argue with it. You know, worship one God. Okay, yeah, it's like, how can you argue with that? You really can't. You could argue that God is 3 and 1 and 3 because that's hard to understand, right? So this is great because so many people started coming to the Prophet ﷺ and trying to understand what was he saying, right? And there wasn't a lot of conversions, but it still gave them some publicity, if you will, right? And we talked about like, even today, like you go on the news, we see like Islam's all over the place. And I myself, I participate with this organization called Why Islam. Some of you guys might know it. ICNA does this Dawah project. And we set up a booth at the LA Times Book Festival. They hold it at the USC campus in Los Angeles. And so we have a booth where we just give out copies of the Qur'ans, pamphlets, books on Islam, all these different things, all free. And if you notice that one of the most popular booths at this book festival is Barnes & Noble has their own booth, you know, all these booksellers. But ours have a humongous line. It's amazing. We give out almost like 2,000 Qur'ans in 2 days. Okay? Why? Number one, first, the people come there because of what? They like books. It's not people that just want to get anything. And it's free, of course. Okay, I give you that. It's free, right? People love free things. But people actually really want to know. And you see so many people come there like, I always wanted a Quran, I never bought one. I didn't know. And people take Shahada actually at these tables, you know? So all that negative publicity helps out. Do you think without 9/11 and without all the stuff on the TV, how many people would come to our table? Big deal. You guys are another religious group, right? But the spotlight's on us, so alhamdulillah, that's one thing. Even though it's a negative spotlight, we could use that for open masjid day and so forth. Aisha, you were saying something? Or you wanted to...
No, I just wanted to, since Hajj was approaching, aren't they already Muslims? So what would that do if they corrupt their minds?
Who? Oh, no. Who are already Muslims? Sorry.
I mean, you're saying Hajj was approaching, so people will come from all over, right?
Yeah.
So aren't the people coming there not Muslims?
They're not Muslims. They're not Muslim. Of course, Islam is only like 40 people right now, most likely. 40 or odd number of people. That's only in the Quraysh. That's it. The Prophet ﷺ is not telling other tribes yet, right? Of course, when they come for Hajj, they do.
Just to clarify, so what is Hajj defined as at that time?
They do the tawaf, like they walk around the Kaaba too, but they will do it in, like I said, different. They'll put their idols in front of the Kaaba and they'll walk around that, of course. And then they also will sacrifice an animal like how we do in Hajj, but they'll do it to their idols. They'll stay in Mina, because there's no hotels, so everyone who comes in has to stay somewhere. So Mina was a place that they will stay, just like we do today. They'll go to Arafah also, but it's not understood exactly what they'll do there. I'm not too sure. And they'll do the Safa and Marwa, but there's 2 idols on each hill. So you walk between them, and it's kind of like honoring them, if you will. So there's similarities to it, but it's a lot of backwards things, obviously, that's mentioned in there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran that people used to clap and do other things while they're doing tawaf and so forth. Any other questions? Alrighty. So now we're going to the 4th year of Prophet. The Prophet has been a prophet for 4 years, okay? So they can't physically hurt the Prophet because Abu Talib says, this is my nephew, leave him alone. But Abu Lahab, as one of the worst enemies of Islam, the Prophet says in the hadith that Abu Lahab is like the Fir'aun of Islam. Basically, he was like Pharaoh. What Pharaoh did to Moses, peace be upon him, Abu Lahab was like that, to cause harm. So he used to throw stones at the Prophet ﷺ, right? Not maybe like big ones, but trying to annoy him. His 2 sons, man, how ironic. were married to the Prophet's two daughters. Okay, Prophet had 4 daughters, as we mentioned, but 2 of them were married to his sons. Like, why? Out of all people, right? Right? You guys remember when Musa alayhi salam the mother of Musa alayhi salam put her son Musa in the river? Where did he end up going? On the shores of whose house? Pharaoh's house. Out of all people, right? Why would you go there for? Right? Of course, the design. But here, same thing. Subhanallah, how ironic. But then, so what he did, Abu Lahab said, I want my sons to divorce your daughters. That makes the daughters look obviously bad. It taints their reputation in society, right? So Ruqayya and Kulthum ends up now being husbandless or divorced, if you will, making fun of the Prophet's son's death. And this is really low. The Prophet had a son. We all mentioned that he died when he was 2 or 3 years old when he's young. So Abu Lahab will say, look, see, God cut you off of having any male offspring. He doesn't like you. He doesn't love you, right? And he will put him down like this, if you will, right? Abu Lahab will follow him and tell people not to listen to him. Like a little kid. He'll walk behind the Prophet ﷺ and go blah, 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 or tell people don't listen to him, he's crazy. And while the Prophet ﷺ trying to meet with people, this guy's walking behind him. Imagine how terrible. Yeah, exactly, right? This is what they would do, right? And there's people like that today that do that to Islam, right? Jamil, now this is the wife of Abu Lahab. We talked about how Allah says in the Quran that she'll be carrying firewood in the hellfire. That Jamil, the wife of Abu Lahab, will she'll take branches and put thorns and throw them in the walkway, the alleyways of the houses in Mecca. So when the Prophet will come out his door, he will end up stepping in it or have to walk around it. Remember the word thobes, the kind of long dress, material. If it catches on it, it pretty much gets stuck on you, right? She'll do that just to make fun of him or make harm on him, and then kind of like use really bad language, obviously, and kind of cuss him out and stuff like that. A'udhu billah. Used to do stuff like that. Uqba bin Mu'ayt. Well, this guy's pretty bad too. Honestly, he's like almost worse than Abu Jahl. One time the Prophet ﷺ was praying, and Abu Lahab or Abu Jahl says, who would take the entrails of a camel? They slaughtered a camel, and people don't eat the guts and intestines and so forth, and they'll throw it out to the outskirts of Mecca. So he said, who would go out and get those camel guts that we slaughtered the other day, take it out in your hands, who would want to carry that in the first place, and dump it onto the Prophet ﷺ while he is praying? Of course, he didn't say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I did. And so this Utbah says, okay, I'll do it. He goes over there, picks it up. The Prophet ﷺ is praying. He dumps it on his back. And that's just like nasty, gross, bacteria, smelling, all that stuff, on his back while he's in what? In sujood. Now, not that that's just really bad and dirty and smelly, but that is so embarrassing. It's so like you feel like you're no one now, right? You're just scum on earth, right? You don't have no type of, dignity at all, right? That's what they're trying to do. And this is a famous story when this happened, that somebody went to the house of Khadijah and said, this is happening to the Prophet ﷺ. And who runs out of that house? Little 8-year-old Fatima, right? She runs out and basically tells off Abu Jahl, don't harm my father. He'll come and something's going to happen to you and you're going to see, right? She stood up for her father, right? There's no boys in the house, right? So she runs out and she protects her father at that time and takes him back and obviously helps to clean him off and so like, subhanAllah, right? She has to see her father go through that. That's traumatizing for a kid to see that type of things. But this is what the Prophet ﷺ is going through. As today, alhamdulillah, we have these buildings. We have no one really bothering us every now and then, right? So this is something the Prophet ﷺ has to deal with. More persecution goes on. Now, one thing about the Quraysh, they know they couldn't harm the big leaders in the Quraysh, so those who are Muslim like Abu Bakr and other people, Uthman and so forth. But the ones who were slaves and those who were low in society that had no tribal background, they were easy people to harm, because no one's going to protect them. And one is the famous Bilal ibn Raba'ah, the famous one who makes the adhan for the Muslims later on. He was a slave under an owner called Umayyah bin Khalaf. Oh, this guy's pretty bad too. And he would take Bilal. Bilal became Muslim. And once he heard that you became Muslim, he was starting to threaten him and torture him. It's mentioned that he'll put him on this, drag him on his neck, put a rope on his neck, and tell like these kids that are like up to no good, take that and drag them in the streets of Mecca so people could see that these are the Muslims. That's who they are. That's how they're getting treated. And he had to go through that. And the famous story is when they put him on the hot sand in the desert and put big rocks on his chest to basically crush him. Until he says what? That I worship Hubal and Lat and Uzza, these idols, if you will. But he told Bilal, say it. And what Bilal would say? He would say, Ahad, Ahad. One. There's only one God. And he would do that purposely. Later on, when Bilal becomes free, they asked Bilal, why didn't you just give up? Why didn't you say that I worship this idol? I don't care, leave me alone. And why did you say Ahad for? He said, I know if I said Ahad, one God, that would get him more mad, Umayyah. It would more like make him angry that I'm sticking it in his face, even though he has what? Boulders on his chest and he's about to get killed, right? And subhanAllah, that's how the iman level. That's why when we talk about these individuals, we say, radiyallahu an, may Allah be pleased with them. And that's why they're the greatest of Muslims ever. Because me and you, I don't know if we could handle this, right? Someone stares at me at the mall when I'm praying. Oh my God, I don't want to pray again. You know what I mean? I want to go into some store or something like that, or go pray in the dressing room or something, right? But here's that. Look what they have to go through, subhanAllah. They were only Muslim for how long? Like 3 years. That's it. Not like they're born, their family's been Muslim, they got the Quran memorized. They've been a Muslim for only maybe 2-3 years, maybe a couple months. But they understood so strong that this is 100% truth. I don't care, kill me. That I love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most. That is amazing. It reminds me of the story of when the magicians became Muslim after Fir'aun told them to what? To challenge Musa. And then the magicians saw what Musa alayhi salam did and they said, you know what? I believe in the God of Moses. And Fir'aun was like, what? How dare you turn your back on me? And he said, I'm going to kill you. And he killed the magicians. And the magicians said, all right, kill us, no problem. Right? This is true. And they believed in Moses for about maybe 30 minutes. And they got killed. Right? Their iman was that strong. We wish we could have an iman like that, subhanAllah. Right? And then we have Ammar bin Yasir, radiallahu anh. And his two parents, Sumayya and Yasir, where they were killed by Abu Jahl and other people. Also, because they were also like slaves and so forth. And his father was tortured and killed. His mother, Sumayya, was the first person to ever get killed before anyone else. And that's why she's known as the first martyr in Islam. So first martyr in Islam was a woman. And she could have gave up. Like, okay, I worship this idol, leave me alone. Like, no. She kept on telling Abu Jahl that I will never give up this religion. As mentioned, Abu Jahl took a spear and shoved it right up to her stomach and basically killed her that way. SubhanAllah. And that's, people are going to be, in the highest places of Jannah, inshallah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. And his father, and Ammar bin Yasir, he was getting tortured. And remember, he just saw his mother die. So what is he thinking? And that's my turn next. And he was getting tortured. And they said, give up your worship of one God and say, I worship Lat and Uzza and these idols. And it's mentioned that he said, you know what? I recant. I worship these idols. And so they left him alone. And then later on, he went to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Ya Rasulullah, they were torturing me so bad, I said it. But I don't really believe it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down these ayat in Surah Nahl, right? In chapter number 16. It said, whoever disbelieves in Allah after his belief, whoever believes in Allah and then later on disbelieves, except for those who are forced to renounce their religion while their heart is secure, right? So if you're getting tortured, inshallah, no one's ever going to experience this in life, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah protect all of us, that you won't have to be in this position where you can say, you know what, I believe this, leave me alone. But Allah will judge you what's in your heart, right? I don't know if you guys been following what's been going on in Guantanamo Bay with the torturing, and there was a documentary that came out on Netflix recently, that all the waterboarding and stuff, I don't know if you got, these people are getting tortured because they thought they did 9/11 or something, not necessarily give up your religion. But it's very similar, subhanAllah, about the torture. Some people got waterboarded 180 something times, right? It's supposed to simulate that you're drowning. It's very sick, right? And they found out that the torture doesn't do anything. They got no truth from it. People just make up lies because they want you to stop hurting them. It's the dumbest thing. But subhanAllah, these Muslims that go through this, and I don't know if they're innocent or not, those people in Guantanamo Bay or not, but anyhow, they're Muslims, and we can just judge them on their innocence until they're innocent until they're proven guilty. But this is some stories of what kind of even goes on today. SubhanAllah, some countries. Egypt also and other places. Like Muslims are torturing Muslims. But I don't want to get into that anyhow. Maybe we'll talk about that later on. Khabab ibn Arat, another slave, becomes Muslim. His owner was a woman, found out that he became Muslim. Put him on burning coals. Okay, like you barbecue, right? You guys know coals and barbecuing. Put him and laid him down on burning coals and then put a rock to push it into his back. And he had to stay that way, right? And that you don't usually die because of that. You just have a lot of severe torture and pain. And that later on he becomes Muslim. As I mentioned in Medina that he was in a battle and he took off his shirt to change and they saw these like craters in his back. And they were like, what the heck is that? We have never seen something like that. And he told them the story of what happened to him, and this is why I have these marks on my back, subhanAllah. But he wouldn't give up worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are slaves, they're like the lowest in society. They could easily give up and get a normal life, but they never did. Right? And these are the stuff that was kind of going on during that time. And the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned that he passed by Ammar bin Yasir, and his family was all getting tortured. And all he could say, Isbir. Ya Ahlul Yasir, or the people of Yasir, his family of Yasir, just have patience. That's all we could do. That's all we can't fight back right now. There's no verses of fighting yet that have been revealed. So this is obviously a super sad thing to go over, but it's a reality, and inshallah, the more we read about it, the more we appreciate the early Muslims and what they had to go through. First migration to Abyssinia. Now we're going to year 5 after prophethood. Remember, we go to 13 years in Mecca and then 10 years in Medina. So we're in year 5. We have 8 more years after this to talk about. So the persecution was so much, right? I told you all people are getting persecuted. So it was revealed that to the Prophet ﷺ, or was inspired in him, that to make migration to another land. At least not all everyone, but just a group of early Muslims to go there because it would be safer for them. And it was mentioned that Surah Kahf, chapter number 18, the famous Surah Kahf, was sent down at that time. I think all of you guys have read Surah Kahf before, or at least heard it or something. You know there's 3 main stories in there. The first story is about young individuals. They're in a city, and they're getting persecuted because they want to worship Allah, and their king didn't want to. And so what did they have to do? They had to go to a cave. That's why they call it Kahf. Kahf means cave in Arabic. They had to go to a cave to be saved for their life. So it's an indication that if times gets hard, then leave. Okay? And see if you go and hopefully you'll be safe in other places. And it also talks about Khidr and Musa alayhi salam. You guys know the story about Khidr and Musa, where there's a lot of things that happened in front of Musa alayhi salam. He didn't understand what was going on until later on he saw the benefit. So meaning that what the future is bright. Even though you're getting persecuted now, you're going to see the victory. And then the last story in Surah Kahf is the story of Dhul Qarnayn, right? He's a righteous leader. He ends up ruling the earth, the east and the west. And you'll see later on, that's pretty much what Islam does. So there's a nice little lesson in Surah Kahf that the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to ponder on and use that as inspiration, inshallah ta'ala. Now there's a leader in Abyssinia. Abyssinia is like present-day Ethiopia. I wish I put a map because people's geography is really bad. But anyhow, so if you guys know Mecca, if you go west, okay? If you know west, there's Africa there. There's the Red Sea, and then you hit Africa. And if you go over the Red Sea, Ethiopia is pretty much right there. Okay, it's like a 2-day journey in their time. You have to take a boat, obviously, to get over there. The Prophet ﷺ sent 12 men and 4 women to go out and go to this king, right? Najashi, or Negus in English, right? Najashi wasn't his name, it's just like the title of the king, like we call president or prime minister, right? So they call the Negus or the Najashi. And it was known that he was a just leader. So the Prophet ﷺ knew that already. It was well known in the area that he was a just leader and also that he was Christian. But here the Prophet ﷺ is sending brand new Muslims, fresh, maybe 2 or 3 years in Islam, or to go to another area and live under Christianity's rule, or a place that's Christianity, has Christians there, which could be kind of scary because then you're like, hold on, how about if they become Christian? And you'll see actually one of them or 2 end up becoming Christian later on. But what's better is their safety, if you will. So 12 men and 4 women go, and one of them is Uthman radiallahu anh, the famous Khalifa of Islam, later on be the Khalifa of Islam, the 3rd Khalifa, and his wife Ruqayya. Uthman ends up marrying the Prophet's daughter. And one thing you're going to see that Uthman will also marry another Prophet's daughter. He ended up marrying 2 of the Prophet's daughter. What an honor that is, right? And they are the ones that are also sent to go to Abyssinia. And I wanted to show you a lesson in this, is that usually when a leader, when he wants to send an army out, or people do something that's really risky, he doesn't send their own family. They sent like the lower people, you guys go and you go fight that army. It was interesting when they're talking about the war in Iraq. I think it was Michael Moore or something. I'm not too sure. He went up and he went to Capitol Hill and he started interviewing all these senators. He said, can you sign up your son to go to the army? And they're like, what? I'll never sign up my son to go to the army to go to Iraq. And then none of the congressmen will sign up their own kids to go into the military to go fight in Afghanistan or in Iraq. Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't do it, but they'll love to sign a bill saying, well, let's go fight. But they wouldn't put their own family there, right? But here the Prophet ﷺ sends his own daughter and his son-in-law, right? And maybe, who knows if they have grandkids later on, his grandkids, to go over there, right? He's not just saying, oh, you Muslims, you're the ones who are low in society, you guys go and try it out. If you guys die, then oh well. No. He'll go in the second one, yeah. Jafar will go later on, which is the Prophet's cousin, right? And there's a bunch of them go. So these 14 individuals sneak out of Mecca, right? Get a boat, alhamdulillah, get over to Abyssinia, right? 2-day journey or so, and start living over there. Now it's mentioned that a couple of months later on, Surah Najm, if everyone ever heard of Surah Najm, play it in your car, inshallah ta'ala, when you guys go home or something like that, is very rhythmic. It's very beautiful. I mean, a lot of the surahs are very beautiful, really rhythmic. But Surah Najm has its own nice little asterisk to it. Very beautiful. And it's very rhythmic. It's very nice in sounding. And it's mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ was in front of the Kaaba and he started to recite Surah Najm, right? And there's a verse in Surah Najm where you have to make sujood, right? We call it ayat al-sujud or tilawa, etc. And so the Prophet ﷺ came to this verse. And the Quraysh would listen to it. And even though they don't believe in Islam, they were listening to it. And when they got to that verse where Allah says to make sujood, make prostration, everyone made prostration. They were too caught up in it, right? You know how you hear a song and you don't want to dance, but you just start shaking? You know what I mean? That is bad example, but anyhow, you understand what I mean by this, right? And so anyhow, they heard it. And then all of them made sujood. And they didn't know what they were doing. They got up, they're like, what the heck happened to us? All right, they were mesmerized by it. And you can look up on YouTube where people who listen to the Quran first time in their life, there's people that do that. They go to Japan and they play Quran to people. They don't understand it, but they say, I never heard words like this before. I don't know if you guys know Wissam Sharif. He's in Dallas or Texas area. Beautiful voice, mashallah. You can look him up once again on YouTube. And he was here, I remember at Irvine. He was the imam at Irvine Masjid for a while. And a lady who was deaf came, and he was telling the story. And of course, she can't hear the Quran because obviously she's deaf. So she asked if she could put her hand to the throat of Brother Wissam, and he got his wife's permission and so forth, to feel that vibration of just the words. Right? She could lips, you could read lips too, right? But it's in Arabic, so it's not going to understand. So she put it there, and she said, "No, I've never." Well, translate it because obviously she's told people after. She never felt these or heard these vibrations before ever. I don't know if she took Shahid or anything, subhanAllah. But it was just something amazing. And you see the videos of people go to Japan and they don't understand Arabic, but they're just amazing. Where did this come from, right? And so it's very interesting, subhanAllah. But anyhow, so the Prophet recites this, everybody makes sujood, and then they get up and they're like, what happened? And then they made up a lie that the Prophet was prostrating to the idols, and because they didn't want that news to get around. Nonetheless, that news reaches Abyssinia, and those 16 Muslims that are there, some people say 16, 17, etc. They hear the news and they hear that everyone in Mecca became Muslim. They're like, yes, let's go back. And one thing I want you to put in mind, these 16 people that went out to Abyssinia, you're talking about back in those days, people didn't leave their city. You stay in your tribe, right? It's mentioned that Shaykh Yasser was mentioned in a lecture that most people died 20 miles where they were born. People don't really travel out, right? Because you have to learn a new language in Abyssinia. You don't know what they're speaking, right? Food, climate's different, etc. Where are you going to live? So they were eager to get back to Mecca, okay? So it's mentioned they came back, and when they came back, they heard that it wasn't true, that they didn't become Muslim at all. But it was already too late. They were really close. So some tried to return, and some stayed, and some got caught and got tortured once again. The Prophet ﷺ then once again sends out another big group. Now this is the bigger group now. They're around 83 men and 19 women. Okay, 102 people, if you will, or 101, etc., depending on the number. Now make a second migration to Abyssinia. He sends a bigger group now to go over there and live. And it's mentioned that the Quraysh at that time were around the city in Mecca, and they were trying to make sure that no one leaves because they didn't want them to leave. And they snuck out, and they got back, and they were able to sneak all these people out to make it back to Abyssinia again. And so here, I wanted, before I get into other things here, is that why did the Quraysh not want the Muslims to leave to Abyssinia? If you think about Trump, right, the Muslim ban and so forth, I think he'll be quite happy if all the Muslims left America. I think he will celebrate that, right? If you think the Quraysh, they would probably love for the Prophet ﷺ and all the Muslims to get out of Mecca. You guys are causing so much harm. Please leave. But here, the Quraysh wanted them back. Why would they want them back? Didn't want Islam to spread, so they might go to Abyssinia and create their own nation, right? And what will happen? They might come back and attack, right? That's one thing. What else? Why do they want their own people back for?
Repetition of Makkah, so they didn't want people to hear about the bad things.
Exactly. If your own people are leaving, right? If you have a family gathering and half your family doesn't go, it doesn't look bad. It looks like what happened. My family's really broke, right? It doesn't look good in your own family, right? So they didn't want those news spreading around that the Quraysh have lost grips of their own tribes and everything's breaking apart. They have no respect. Dignity goes out the window. It's a lot of pride, if you will. So they wanted them back, right? And so here is that there's a story of Abu Bakr, right? He was also told to leave, even though how he had a high status in Mecca. But his own tribe, his own clan within Quraysh gave him up. Not like Abu Talib. Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, protected him. But Abu Bakr's clan said, no, we don't care about you. Like, you want to become Muslim, you're on your own. So if you get harmed, then that's your thing. And so what happened, he was having a tough time, so he migrated. He was going to Abyssinia. And there's another person from a leader from a tribe met Abu Bakr and said, you're Abu Bakr. You're like very high rank in Quraysh. Why are you leaving for? Someone like you doesn't leave the town of Mecca. Go back and I will give you protection. So he goes back in, the guy comes in and says, you know what, I'm so-and-so from this tribe out in the desert. I give Abu Bakr protection, even though he's not from my tribe. Okay? So don't harm him. And he tells the Quraysh, if you do it, then you have to talk to me. Leave him alone. What did the Quraysh say? They say, like, who are you? They say, you know what, okay, we'll take him back. But one thing Abu Bakr was known for is that he would recite Quran very nice. And one thing his daughter's name, Aisha, ended up being the wife of the Prophet ﷺ in a couple more years. She said that Abu Bakr would recite Quran so nice, but he was buka. He used to cry a lot when he recites. Like he would cry a lot because of the verses of the Quran. So the Quraysh says, you know what? You could stay in Mecca. We won't harm you, but you cannot pray by the Kaaba and let people hear you. You have to pray only in your house. Right? Lockdown. Only you can pray in your house. So he said, okay. Abu Bakr's smart. He built a little masjid in his house to the side of it, in like his backyard or front lawn, the side of it, and he will go out there and he will pray there. And of course, he will pray quite loud. So people used to gather around and just listen to him. And it ended up bringing a lot of people, a lot of attention to his house and what he was saying. And they'll hear the verses of the Quran. You can't stop, subhanAllah, God's word, subhanAllah. You could try, but it doesn't work, right? And then the Quraysh sent Amr bin As, Abdullah ibn Abi Rabi'ah to the Negus, to Abyssinia, to get the Muslims back. What's really interesting, these two individuals become Muslim later on. Right? It always works backwards, right? How many people, and you guys know a couple of years ago, they made that cartoon about the Prophet ﷺ. You guys remember that? All right, that guy became Muslim after that. After making the cartoon and causing a bunch of people in Pakistan to do riots and so forth, right, and other places, he becomes Muslim, right? The same guy in, we're going to bring up their names and put it on the slide. In Switzerland, I believe they have the minaret ban, right? You can't have a masjid with a minaret on it, right? So they said no minarets for the masjid, right? He ends up becoming Muslim later on. There's so many of these people and that are not all of them, obviously, but they end up have to studying Islam so much that they're like, wow, this actually makes some sense. SubhanAllah, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides who he wants. So these two individuals were sent by the Quraysh to go to Abyssinia. You go to the Negus, you go to the Najashi, tell them these people are renegades. These people have left their own city. These people have, defamed their forefathers. They have caused corruption. Tell them to send these people back. They're going to do the same thing in your city also, right? And so they tell the Najashi about this. Najashi's like, I don't know about them too well, but if you're the leaders of the Quraysh, I know about the Quraysh tribe. Let me ask them. So Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, is a spokesperson of the group, and he stands up and he talks. And one thing I want you guys to learn about leadership is that not everyone gets up and talks. He's the leader. He's the only one that gets up and talks to the Najashi. Not like this person in the back and this brother over here and this, this sister wants to say something. No, it's one person, right? Because it's better that person who's trained and knows what they're saying, they should talk. So Ja'far ibn Abi Talib comes up and tells them about who they are and who is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And he tells them, we are people that used to kill each other, used to drink, used to prostitution, we used to harm each other, do this, but he has changed us to worship one God and to not drink, have mannerism, etc., etc., etc. And Najashi's like, this is good. What's wrong with these people? And they said, what is this Quran that you talk about? Can I hear some verses? So what verses does he pick? Surah Maryam, right? Because Najashi is what? Christian, right? And this is wisdom. Anytime you talk to a non-Muslim, tell them about something you think that they might perceive to them or something that they might attach to. Some people you might find are really big about spirituality. So you might talk about fasting to them. You might talk about prayer. Some people are really attached to, the scripture. You might tell them about the Quran. Or Christians are obviously tell them about Maryam alayhi salam. We're the only religion outside Christianity that acknowledges Jesus, peace be upon him. Right? If you consider Mormons as Christians also. Right? And so Jews obviously don't like Jesus, peace be upon him. They try to kill him. Right? We're the only other religion that does that. And Christians are looking for someone else they could at least hug and say, yay, you know what I mean? Yes, Jesus, right? You guys actually like him, right? They can't find anyone else. So he recites the couple verses of Surah Maryam that talks about Yahya, John the Baptist. It talks about obviously the virgin birth of Mary to Jesus, peace be upon him. And Najashi starts crying. And he says something that, no, that's not there. Anyhow, maybe I didn't put it there. He says something that what you're saying and what I know is from the same source. Meaning what I know as a Christian and what you're saying as a Muslim is from the same source, right? And he tells these two guys, leave them, you're not going to have them back. They're safe to live here in Abyssinia. So these guys don't want to give up. And they're like, how can we stop them? Next morning they get up and they go back to the Najashi. I said, Najashi, guess what? We know. They're hiding something. He said, what are they hiding? Ask them what they think about Jesus. They don't take him as a God. And Najashi's like, what? Hold on. I didn't hear that part in these verses. So they brought Ja'far on once again. I said, Ja'far, what did you say? What do you believe in Jesus, peace be upon him? And then he says here, and I could have sworn I made a slide about this, and maybe I was sleeping or something, I'm not too sure. Maybe I was sleeping. He says that what? That we take him as a prophet of God, and from the virgin birth, and an honored prophet, and we respect him. And Najashi once again says, they puts a stick on the ground, he says, what we believe and what they believe is nothing more than this, from the difference of this stick here. And tells them, and these guys are they're lobbyists, right? They brought a bunch of gifts, and they gave it to the Najashi. Najashi says, here, take your gifts back, and thank you so much, and you can go back to Mecca, right? They're okay here. And it's mentioned that the Najashi was part of a sect of Christianity that's understood that they were still monotheistic, that they didn't believe Jesus as being a God, which there are some small Christian groups like that during his time, but they were very, very small.
You still have Unitarians.
There's still Unitarians, yeah. Unitarians are very interesting too. I mean, there's so many of them. It's like Baskin Robbins. But anyhow, but yes, they're people that don't take him as Jesus as God too, right? Christianity has a plethora of different belief systems and so forth. But that's true. There are some definitely out there. All right. So they say that. So now we have a group of Muslims now in this Abyssinia area. And some of them will not go back. Now they're in Abyssinia. They will not return back to meet the Prophet ﷺ until like 13 years later on. The 7th year after they make migration to Medina, then they finally come back. So they're missing out on the Prophet ﷺ. They're not there. They don't get to see him every single day, right? The verses of the Quran, I don't know how it's even actually getting over to them, right? Maybe there's a messenger that comes every now and then and says, here, these are the new verses that were revealed. Allahu Alam. I've never seen anything in any books that mention that. But they stay there for a very long time. And I mentioned that Najashi, you'll see later on, he becomes Muslim. And he dies as a Muslim. And the Prophet ﷺ actually prays Salatul Janazah for him while he's in Medina. He prays called Salatul Ghaib, where he prays Salatul Janazah for Najashi, even though he's in Abyssinia, the body's in Abyssinia, he prays in Medina for him. And he says that my brother has passed away, and he's actually a Muslim, if you will. But he never announced it to his community, because they probably would have done what? They probably would have kicked him out, if you will, right? Harming the Prophet ﷺ. So now we go back to Abu Talib once again. They came to Abu Talib, the Quraysh, and say, these Muslims are getting bigger and bigger. They're in Abyssinia, they're growing more in Mecca. You have to tell your nephew to stop it, or we're going to really have to do something to him. Basically, we're going to try to kill him. Abu Talib tells the Prophet ﷺ that you have to just give up this message or calm down, just keep it with your group, etc. But the Prophet ﷺ says something amazing here. He said, "Oh my uncle, by Allah, if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, basically give me all the power, all the wealth, right? I will not abandon this course. I will not abandon telling people about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until Allah has made me victorious, or I perish, or I die therein, I will not abandon at all." This is it. This is not like a phase I do, you know what I mean? I come in Ramadan and you don't see me again. No, this is my full-time thing. This is what I do. And this inshallah should be all of our goals also, to be like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's hard though. It's mentioned that Utaybah bin Abi Talib, Abu Lahab's son, right, went to the Prophet ﷺ one time. This is all the kind of harming of the Prophet ﷺ. Went to him, took his shirt, grabbed him, ripped his shirt off, obviously, and tried to spit in his face and discredit him in front of the community, right? Once again, torturing him, etc. The Prophet ﷺ tells Utaybah, "Oh Allah," and he makes dua for him. And it's very rare in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, you actually have the Prophet ﷺ actually makes dua against a person. He usually tells Allah, guide this person, "Oh Allah, forgive this person." But there is balance. There's a time the Prophet ﷺ says, like, "Oh Allah, destroy these people." Right? Just do something to them. He says it actually, this is one instance, maybe like 2 or 3 times in the Seerah we actually see this. And he tells them, "Oh Allah, send your dogs, like the dogs of the hellfire, on him." And it's mentioned later on that Utaybah was on a journey to Syria, and he was laying down, and he got up, and he saw this big lion, like dog animal, coming towards him. And it's mentioned that it bit his neck, and he died on that journey. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered his dua. Because the thing is, you know why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ didn't make too much dua against the people? Because when the Prophet ﷺ makes dua, guess what? It's accepted. It's not like, oh, maybe Allah will answer it or not. No, it's accepted. That's it. The person will die. That's what's going to happen to them, or whatever the case may be, right? Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, also one of the terrible people in the Quraysh, right? One time the Prophet ﷺ was praying, and he stepped on his neck, right? And stepped on his neck. That's so hard. Mentioned that his eyes almost protruded out, like of the pressure. And once again, the Prophet ﷺ, no one's there to help him. Abu Talib was protecting the Prophet ﷺ, but he's like maybe at home, maybe somewhere else. He's not following me every day and say, "Don't harm my nephew, don't harm my nephew." So they'll do these things to the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Jahl one time said, and he told the Quraysh, I'm going to get a rock, and when the Prophet ﷺ praying, when Muhammad's praying, I'm going to get it and just drop it on his head, and that's it. It's going to be over. But we can't take this. Because if he succeeds, guess what? He's going to lose his power, because he's one of the leaders in Quraysh. So he's going to get dethroned from his presidential job, if you will, right? Being one of the leaders in Quraysh. And he doesn't want that. And he's from a different clan of the Prophet ﷺ. So anyhow, I mentioned one time that he did take a rock, and he was going over to the Prophet ﷺ, and he was going to throw it down on him. And it's mentioned that he saw some male camel, some big figure right in front of them, and he dropped the rock and he ran back. And everyone was like, what happened? What happened? And he told them that I came really close, and I saw this animal in front of me, and I ran. Right? I don't know about you. I would take that as a sign and probably become Muslim after that. But Abu Jahl is just not the smartest guy in the world. But anyhow, that's why I call Jahl. Means like ignorant, if you will. The father of ignorance. That wasn't his real name. His real name was Amr. But anyhow, right? So if you think about it, the Prophet ﷺ actually does use nicknames for people. Right? Don't take that and start calling people always like, Trump's this person, and then this person, that person. It's really rare he does that. But this is what's a nickname that like everybody uses. Whether he started this nickname or not is something to be researched. But people just called him the father of ignorance, even though he was, people just call him Abu Hikmah, the father of wisdom, but the Prophet turned it around and called him the father of ignorance, if you will. Right. Uqba ibn Mu'ayt one time took the garment of the Prophet's neck and while he was praying, took it and started to like basically choke him to death. Abu Bakr comes in and says, leave him alone. Will you harm someone who wants to worship one God? Like, is that really what you're doing to this person? And they stopped. But it's mentioned that they started beating down Abu Bakr, to the point they said that he couldn't move for a week because of he was getting beat so bad, like almost paralyzed to an extent. It's bruised up and so forth. But Abu Bakr, obviously his best friend, was trying to protect him also. So things are getting pretty hard for the Prophet and the Muslims in Mecca. We go to the 6th year of prophethood. Right? They need some help. And it comes in a very weird way. The Prophet would never think about this. Once again, Abu Jahl keeps on doing all these terrible, nasty things to the Prophet. One time, once again, he goes and he sees the Prophet by the Kaaba praying. I used to hate that because everyone's seeing the Prophet pray, so that's like publicity for Islam. So he took a rock, went to the Prophet and just, boom, hit him on his head as hard as he can. Cracked his head here, bleeding. Okay. I don't know about you, like, Prophet just getting beat up like left and right. No one's protecting him at all, right? He's getting these little cheap shots. And he begins bleeding, and somebody sees this happen. And then his uncle, Hamza. Now, Hamza was known as being a very big guy. He used to go out and hunt lions in the desert, and one of those tough guys, if you will. He's an elder in the community too. And he was coming back into Mecca after going hunting, and he had a bow that he would go and he would like catch animals with, if you will, or shoot animals, etc. And someone said, you know what happened to your nephew today? He's like, no, what happened? He says, Abu Jahl came and just hit him on the head with this rock. That's your nephew, that's your blood. He said, you did that? Seriously? And he wasn't Muslim. Hamza was not Muslim. He couldn't care too much about this religion thing. He wasn't really into it. So he goes over to Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab sitting in with a bunch of his thugs and around the Kaaba there. They're talking, etc. Runs up on him and said, did you hit my nephew today? He says, yeah, I did. Hamza takes his bow, cracks him over the head, hits Abu Jahl over the head. Now these are like the two big guys in Quraysh right here, right, are battling out. Abu Jahl doesn't do anything. Because he knows if he does something, it's going to be two clans are going to start fighting. And Hamza hits him and said, don't you know that I follow the religion of Muhammad? He's like, what? No. Hamza just said that out of just adrenaline. He didn't believe that. He wasn't a Muslim. But he just hated what he did, so he wanted to defend his nephew. So he said, how dare you do that when I follow his religion? Abu Jahl's like, you're Muslim? Later on, he went over and went to see his nephew, the Prophet ﷺ, and he became Muslim later on. People come to Islam in very different ways, subhanAllah, right? But it was something he just did. He just said it, and he didn't even know what he said at all. And it kind of reminds you that when things happen to Muslims, and we're going through a lot of things in this country, that people, alhamdulillah, come and help us out even though they're not Muslim. I don't know if you guys remember the whole Muslim ban, right? With the whole those 6 countries, they can't fly into our United States because whatever. How many people were at LAX that weren't Muslim? The majority were. And they're holding up signs, and Michael Moore has this also in one of his movies. He held up a sign that said, I am Muslim, right? He really wasn't Muslim, but you say that everyone's Mexican, everyone's an immigrant, everyone's white, everyone's black. Same thing, he had a sign that says what? I am Muslim, right? So basically, I stand with the Muslims, right? I don't think he's Muslim, obviously, but so many people came. And that's the one way Allah subhanahu guides people. Because if people feel sympathy for us, alhamdulillah, that's one way maybe they come to Islam. And inshallah, we have to meet them and guide them, etc., and talk to them. If they come Muslim, alhamdulillah. If they don't, then we deliver the message. That's all we're supposed to do. So Hamza, alhamdulillah, becomes Muslim here. Now that is very significant. Why? Because the Muslims don't really have a tough guy with them. Where if you mess with us, then you're going to have to deal with him. Right? So now Hamza became Muslim. That was a big thing. Because now they could have some protection. Because Hamza, obviously is a strong person in their society. Second big thing that happened in the 6th year. Now tables are turning now, alhamdulillah, for Islam. Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu anh, he becomes Muslim in the 6th year also. And it's mentioned, he has a very interesting story. That one time, and it starts off where the Prophet was praying in the Kaaba, and he was reciting Surah Haqqa, I have it there. Once again, Surah Haqqa, alhamdulillah, sounds very nice, very beautiful. Talks about a bunch of different things in there. He was listening to it, and it entered his heart. He understood the message, but he didn't want to become Muslim, right? And then he went home, like he had this little incidents where he like kind of liked Islam, but then he hated Islam at the same time. Another thing, he used to drink a lot too, so that's another issue. But anyhow, right? And so it was mentioned that one time that he went out of his house and he said, you know what? He got his sword and said, I'm going to kill Muhammad because of what he's doing. And Omar was a person, you guys probably heard this hadith before, where the Prophet said after he becomes Muslim, that mentioned that if Omar walks down a road, the shaitan goes the other way. Because shaitan doesn't even want to mess around with Omar, right? He was a really big guy. Okay? And subhanAllah, he did amazing things for Islam when he becomes Khalifa later on. So it's mentioned that one day he left his house and he was going to go and kill the Prophet ﷺ. And let me actually add this story one time. When we go back to going to Abyssinia over here, there's a story that there's a lady and her family, her husband, and they're going out to Abyssinia. And they knew Omar. And Omar stops them and said, where are you guys going? They're like, we have to leave because we're getting persecuted so much. And Omar's like, seriously? Has it become that bad that you have to leave your own city? And I know. And he was the only person that used to persecute them. It's really weird. And he said, you know what? And he said a statement that was really weird. He said, may God be with you. And that's what he said. And this lady was taken back. And she goes to her husband and says, you know what? I just met Omar. He stopped me and I thought he was going to kill me pretty much. And he said that he wanted to know what's going on. I told him what's happening. And he told me, may God be with you. And her husband's like, no, that's not Omar. That's probably someone else. Like, yeah, that's Omar. And he makes a very interesting statement. He said, if Omar said that, he's like, no, the father of Omar's donkeys will become Muslim before Omar becomes Muslim. Right? The donkeys will become Muslim before Omar becomes Muslim. There's no chance Omar will become Muslim. This guy is like up to no good. He's a thug. He's drinks, etc. So we go back here, subhanAllah, this verse has become in his heart. And it's mentioned here that that the Prophet ﷺ at one time raised his hands up and made dua. And he said, what? Oh Allah, give me strength. Give me some power. Give me some type of, power that could help support us. Through either two of the men that you love more. Umar ibn Khattab and Abu Jahl ibn Hisham. If Abu Jahl became Muslim, do you think that would have changed the society? Yeah. He's like one of the leaders in Quraysh. Now would he, after all the stuff he's doing? I don't know, probably not, right? And his name was Amr, and his name was Umar. So in the Arabic it says Allah guided one of the two Umarains, right? It sounds different. One of the Umars, Umar or Amr. His real name was Amr bin Hisham. So the Prophet ﷺ makes dua for one of them, for Allah to make them Muslim. Because if they do, Islam will change and it'll have some protection. Now there's a big lesson in this, right? Anyone could think of a really big lesson in this? When you make dua, who do we make dua for? Usually for your mama, your daddy, right? Your children, myself, inshallah ta'ala, right? Hopefully, right? Dr. Siddiqui, the Muslims in Syria, the Muslims in Palestine. Everyone say like, oh Allah, guide Trump to Islam. Anyone ever done that before? Everyone, no one's done that before? Oh Allah, make, Obama, Mr. Hussein, if he could, he's almost there. You got the middle name there. Just whatever, just become Muslim, man. Right? Or how about, this leader or that leader? Would you ever make dua like that? What do you guys think?
Maybe we should.
Oh, you have hit it on the... Wow. See, this is what happens when you don't study the life of the Prophet ﷺ. You don't read it. We just learn from like other people. Allah, destroy these people. Like, yeah, destroy it. Palestine, what's going on in Palestine? Allah, destroy these people. That's true. Some people need to be destroyed. There's some really bad things that people are doing to Muslims, and I agree with you, right? But would you make dua like Allah make Putin Muslim? If he becomes Muslim, is that a game changer? That will change big time. If he became Muslim, oh my gosh, we'll all go to live in Russia probably. I don't know, right? It'd be hecka cold, but that would be amazing. Look what the Prophet is making dua. These are two people who are like the worst of his enemies. These are persons that people are trying to kill him almost on a daily basis. But the heart of the Prophet ﷺ is what? Allah guide them to Islam. Now, and some people don't like this. And one time I brought this in a lecture and people got mad at me, like, why are you making right? How could we make dua for Trump? And how do we make dua for Bashar al-Assad? And how do we make dua for this person? I was like, I understand. Like, that's a sensitive issue. Like, some people in the crowd, their members been killed by some of these people in Syria and Palestine and other places. I got you, I understand. But here, look at this dua. Is the Prophet asking for forgiveness here? Is Allah asking to place him in the highest levels of Jannah? No. Allah's not doing that. The Prophet is not doing that. The Prophet is saying, Allah, just guide them. To what? To whatever one you want, to Islam. He died, that's it. Everyone should at least get that dua. That's like the little bit of rahmah you should have in your heart, is at least make dua for like, oh Allah, guide our citizens in this country and Garden Grove to become Muslims. Allah, guide them to what's better. Right? That should be like the minimum dua, at least that we have. We're like, oh, these people drink, these people do this, these people gamble. Yeah, but guess what? These people did the same thing. But what did our Prophet do that came to teach us? No, that's why we have this. That's why we take this class. That's why we study. So that's how we're supposed to act. Not because of what this person told you or what you think you should do, etc. But this is the best of mankind. That's the dua that he made, right? And so we should ask Allah, guide Trump to being a Muslim, or like give him hidayah, or if not, protect us from his evil. Make a balanced dua, alhamdulillah. People like that better, right? Do that at least, but at least you should make dua for that, because if that does happen, and it probably hasn't happened in the history of the world, right? But still, that is something of how the Prophet's heart is, and our heart, if you will. Yeah, or for the protection, he said, like strengthening Islam between. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly, right? And it's a general dua, right? It's not like, like I said, that's why I want to point out, it's not Jannah, it's not forgive all his doings, or Allah, love him. No, just saying, guide him to Islam. And then we could put him in Jannah Firdaus after that, inshallah ta'ala. But let's get him to Islam first, right? So we should probably, as our sister mentioned, that maybe we should change up our du'as a little bit. Even the people like really uneven with that, like, I don't want to make dua for Trump. You mention your mom's name and your brother's name and your, son. You don't want to put Trump's name in there. It's kind of messing up the whole dua. No, maybe you need to do that every now and then, right? But doesn't mean that you love him. Doesn't mean we approve of what he's doing or approve of any of these leaders or whatever they're doing. That doesn't mean that, right? It just means that you're doing what a prophet came to earth to do, is to tell people about the message of Islam, right? And that's one thing is conveying it, and one thing is making dua for it. Cool. So anyhow, he goes out and he's going to go and kill the Prophet ﷺ. And there's another Sahabi named Nu'aym. He meets him in the pathway, and he saw Umar with his sword and walking towards Dar al-Arqam. Remember, Dar al-Arqam was the place where they will meet. And he knew that he was going to go on and try and kill the Prophet ﷺ. So he wanted to stop him. So he's like, how can I get him to stop? So he said, you know what, Umar, you want to go kill the Prophet? Why don't you handle what's happening in your own family, in your own backyard? He said, what are you talking about? He said, his sister, his name was Fatima. Your sister's a Muslim. He said, oh, what? I didn't know that. And he got mad. And then obviously now guess what? He's turning towards her house now. And poor guy actually ratted out on his sister, but nonetheless, he's trying to save the Prophet ﷺ. Omar goes to the door of his sister Fatima, and her husband's there. And they're learning from Khabbab ibn Arat. Remember Khabbab ibn Arat, the one that has the craters in his back from the hot stones? He's a slave, but he could teach people Quran. He could read. It's amazing. He's at their house being their tutor on how to teach them about verses of the Quran. And they're reciting Surah Taha. Now, I probably said this about every surah so far, but Surah Taha is very rhythmic also, alhamdulillah. It's very beautiful. I thought the other one's also one of my favorites, but should be your favorites also, right? Like all the surahs in the Quran. Very rhythmic, alhamdulillah. And he stood by the door and he hears the Quran being recited. And he busts in, he's knocking on the door. Khabbab ibn Arat hides in the corner because he's about to get killed, obviously. Omar doesn't play around. Everyone knows Omar. And he says, what is that I'm hearing? And he comes to the door and he sees his sister Fatima there. So what is that words I hear? He's like, you didn't hear anything. And he sees that the Quran was written on these these like bones and these like tree branches, etc. and so forth, right? They didn't have paper back then, too much. So he sees this, he says, what is this? And he sees this in the Quran. And he hits his Fatima's husband, I forgot his name now, hits him, knocks him out, right? Fatima comes out and tries to protect her husband. Why women should try to protect your husband, inshallah ta'ala, right? Jumps in there, tries to protect her husband. Omar goes and he hits his own sister and sees that blood that's on her face. You have to hit someone pretty hard to break the skin, you know what I mean? That's a massive hit. Okay, Omar was a big person, okay? Hits his sister and his sister's bleeding there. Now he feels a little bit something in his heart. When he sees his sister, he calms down. He's like, what the heck am I doing? And then he says, like, what are you reading? tries to change up the subject a little bit. And then he picks it up and he sees this Surah Taha. And guess what? He starts reading it and it starts hitting his heart, subhanAllah. This guy's about to kill his own sister. And now it's like his heart's changing. Allah is the one that what changes the heart, subhanAllah. Changes his heart, and then he said, what is these beautiful words? Like, I remember one time when he saw the Prophet ﷺ praying in the Kaaba and he was listening to Surah Haqqa, right? He had this affinity to the Quran. He liked it. So anyhow, he heard this words, he's like, what is these beautiful words? This has to be the truth. Even all that just happened right now, and he wants to become Muslim. Khabab is the one that's hiding in the corner, he pops out. He's like, hey, yeah, mashallah. You want to become Muslim now, mashallah? And I was just in the corner, I was just taking a little nap. But anyhow, I know where the Prophet Muhammad is. I know where Muhammad is, I could take you to him, right? He pops out of the corner. I said, let's go to Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? And you could ask him anything you want, do whatever you want. He takes it, but actually there's a little note there where before he grabs the tablet to read the Quran, his sister says, you're a polytheist, you're dirty, you're najis. Go and wash up before you touch the Quran. So some people take this as that the non-Muslims need to have wudu before they touch the Quran. I just take it that she's just trying to tell him to be clean. And I'll have honor for the book. I think that's more of the issue here. Fiqh-wise, non-Muslims do not necessarily have to have wudu before they touch the Quran. Anyhow, so he does that, whatever. Now he takes them over to the Arqam. The Prophet ﷺ sitting there. Omar comes with his sword, obviously still in his, sheath there, still on his side. Knocks on the door, they peek into the hole. They tell the Prophet ﷺ, Omar's here with a knife, he's with a sword. Do you want us to open it up? He said, open it up. And Hamza said, open it up, no problem. If he comes and he wants peace, we'll give him peace. If he wants to fight us, I will get his own sword and chop his head off. Like that's how Hamza rolls, right? And so he said, no, go ahead, I'll take his own sword and I will kill him, don't worry, right? That's why it changed when Hamza became Muslim. Omar comes in, talks to the Prophet ﷺ, asks him some questions, becomes Muslim right there and there, right? The Trump, right? The Putin, right? The worst military general of out of some foreign country that hates Muslims is now Muslim, right? All of a sudden, things just changed miraculously. Hamza radiallahu anh, and Omar now are both Muslims now. Omar he didn't care about nothing. He knew that no one could harm him. Oh, wow, is it 11:55? Oh my gosh, time passes when you're having fun, right? We'll end on this, inshallah. So he goes out. Now, one thing is that the Muslims never used to pray in front of the Kaaba. Why? You're about to get beat down if everyone knows that you're Muslim. So you pray in Dar al-Arqam or in your own house, but you don't go in front of the Kaaba. Only the Prophet ﷺ would do that, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ used to get beat up so much. But the Prophet ﷺ is different. He didn't really mind about that. Omar said that, what, you guys cannot pray in front of the Kaaba? Why? And they said, because people will kill us. Omar goes up to Abu Jahl, goes over to his house, knocks on his door. Abu Jahl opens up, he says, I'm Muslim. He didn't care. He didn't want to make it no secret. He says, guess what? I'm Muslim now. I'm following the religion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Jahl gets mad, closes the door, and sends him out. Omar goes in front of the Kaaba and starts praying and telling everyone, guess what? I'm Muslim. He didn't care because no one could touch him. Everyone's like, oh my God, this guy, now it's getting really out of control now. Because if Hamza and Omar are both Muslim, can you torture the Muslims anymore? Omar said, guys, everyone come out of Dar al-Arqam, come and sit by the Kaaba and pray. I'm standing right here. No one will touch you. Everyone was like really scared. They start going there and start praying. Omar and Hamza sitting right there, no one messed with them. Bodyguards, right? Bouncers of the Kaaba, right? They're there. And so what? They pray now. Now the game is totally changed now. Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab was like, what do we do now? We can't torture them anymore, right? How are we going to stop this? And we'll see next week, they're going to do something more financially now. And that is what? Maybe we can hit them in the pocket where we do a boycott. Because we can't harm them anymore. No one trade with them. No one even marry any of them, right? And kick them out of Mecca and let them live out in the outskirts. And let's see how long they can last. And then we'll see if they're really true into their religion.
That's actually happening right now with Iran and all
Oh, gosh, there's so much parallels we could do. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Gaza, obviously, is a perfect example. So Iran sanctions what they're doing. May Allah subhanahu make it easy for all of them. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. But you see, when you read these stories, you understand this is just like history repeating. Obviously they have the Prophet with them. It's a lot different than us today, but nonetheless, we have these stories there. So next week, inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue with the boycott and actually what happens. And hopefully we'll finish the Meccan period next week and we'll start talking about how the Prophet migrated to Medina and talk about the first year in Medina or so. Questions or comments before we head out? Any errors on my slides today? Alhamdulillah, I fixed that. I'm doing good. Anything else? Good? Good. Hadith?
No, like those, like what he said, sometimes you move too fast, I can't write them all down.
Okay. If they're in the slides, again, I don't really put too many hadith here.
What he said in the slide.
Okay, yeah. I'll send that. If you're on the list, you'll get them. And then inshallah, please, I'll get your email afterwards. I think I have your email, but anyhow. Okay. طيب, inshallah, we make dua at the end. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Kareem, Ya Rabbil Alameen, to forgive us for our wrongdoings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to enter us in your Jannah, Ya Kareem, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, send your peace and blessings on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his family and his companions until the day of judgment, Ya Rahman Ya Rahim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll see you guys next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.